Merlin Sports.
Welcome to Merlin Sports and our NHL preview show. Well, tonight's episode, we'll look at the Atlantic Division in the NHL Eastern Conference. And we're going to break down the teams and who we think are going to finish top three. And then if there's potential wild cards coming out of the division. With me again to break it down, and along with all the other divisions, is DDawg. DDawg, how are you?
I'm good, man. What's going on?
Hey, not too much. I'm happy that you can join us again, and we're on the cusp of NHL season starting, which means, NBA soon after, and NFL and ramping up in full swing, along with the MLB playoffs, and then also getting to the heart of NCAA football season as well. So this is we're getting to the meat and potatoes of early fall.
Yep.
Pretty exciting.
Yeah. No, excited, man. It's great. Looking forward to hockey and basketball getting started. College football and NFL are in full swing. I didn't mention, but the Premier League is in full swing, and as you said earlier, Major League Baseball is in full swing. So, the playoffs for Major League Baseball. It's my least favorite of the four major sports. So, I'll really talk about it. But yeah, I mean, it's exciting. It's amped up for this time of year.
Okay, well, let's jump right into the Atlantic Division, and I'm going to name off the teams in the order that they finished last year. And we have, bringing up the rear, is Montreal Canadiens, the Ottawa Senators, Buffalo Sabres, Detroit Red Wings, Tampa Bay Lightning, Toronto Maple Leafs, Boston Bruins, and of course the defending Stanley Cup champions, the Florida Panthers. And of these teams, the Panthers, Bruins, and Maple Leafs all finished over 100 points, and obviously the top three made the playoffs automatically, and the Lightning were a wild card just behind at 98 points. So of those bottom four teams, the Red Wings, Sabres, Senators, and Canadiens, who do you like the best of that bottom group, and who do you think will try to challenge to either push in the top three or contend for a wild card this year?
Well, I think you have three teams battling out for the wild card spot. I think those three teams are very simple. I think you got Detroit, Tampa Bay, and Ottawa, who've kind of pushed the envelope. Ottawa a little bit, pushed the envelope to kind of get into that mix. So that's the three teams I see battling out for the wild card spot. Obviously, Tampa has the inside track, although I think they're hurt by the loss of Steve Stamkos. They got Jake Gensel, but Stamkos is he's a Hall of Famer. Gensel's not there, right? I mean, it's pretty obvious there. And I think Ottawa's pushed with their goaltending situation that they went out and got Linus Ullmark from Boston. So that helps them obviously a lot. And then I think Detroit has kind of tried to ramp up a little bit and get a little bit better. They pulled in some guys. Tarasenko's probably the biggest signing they got, but I mean, all that's very important for them, and that's what you have to do in terms of if you want to compete in this division. This division is filled with top-end talent at the top with Florida, Toronto, Boston, even Tampa still got Kucherov, up front with Braden Point. So those are the teams that I think are going to battle for that wild card: Detroit, Ottawa, and Tampa.
Mm-hmm. So you see the top three is still Florida, Boston, and Toronto?
I see the top three. I think Florida's still the top team in the East. I mean, and I think in the Atlantic Division, I just think they're the top team there. Obviously, they've lost some guys. I mean, Ekman Larson going to Toronto, Brandon Montour departing. They've struggled with dealing with the fact that they're going to struggle a little bit. I mean, it takes a lot out of you to go to the Stanley Cup 3 times in a row. 2 years in a row is tough, but 3 times in a row is going to be even tougher. And only 2 teams have repeated in the cap era, so it's going to be a tough sledding for them. But there's still a team that can win, right? They're still that good, even though they lost some key guys, right? So But I like Florida to win the division. I like Toronto to finish second, and I think Boston slips a little bit to third. I think that I think the loss of Allmark, we won't readily know right now. Swayman was the best goaltender for them in the playoffs last year. They picked him to play in the playoffs last year, Swayman. But he's got a contract issue, and the fact that he's not in camp, and there's been a lot of rumors either way. I don't think Swayman feels appreciated, and even when he comes into camp, goaltending. If there's one position in hockey, like in football, if your mind isn't right and goaltending's that in hockey, there's a big problem, right?
Mm-hmm. And not only that, like bringing himself back up to game shape as well. So, just for our audience, at the time that we are recording this, Swayman is still holding out for a new contract. And just this past week, there's kind of been some back and forth in the media between Swayman's camp and management, in particular Cam Neely of Boston Bruins, like basically disagreeing on the numbers and the deal that's on the table. So that never looks well. And then also apparently they had a quite nasty arbitration round last year. So even if and when he does return, and it's just a matter of when. I don't think if is possible, but you know, the goalie needs to play to get sharp, get game ready. So
he's got to feel the pucks, right? He's got to feel pucks, and he can't feel it in practice with, wherever he is, whatever he's practicing, because obviously he's going to be practicing, but he can't feel it the same way as if you'd play in a game, even preseason game. The games ramp up. The first preseason game.
The speed of the NHL is just something you can't replicate in a simulation or practice anywhere.
And they're not going to trade him, right? Because they traded Allmark, so they're not going to trade him. So it's a matter of getting him in. But then, like in any workplace, you got to feel wanted too, right? And this is not making him feel wanted. So it's going to be interesting. It'll be very interesting. It'll be very interesting to see how it goes.
Now, Boston did bring in a couple of good veterans, Elias Lindholm and Nikita Zadorov on defense. So, and they, in trading Linus Allmark, they picked up Ottawa's goalie, Korpisalo, who should mention had a terrible year last year. So, and the thing is that, Marchand's getting up there in age. I think he was a bit hobbled in the preseason. So,
well, they've surprised us, right? I mean, they've surprised us the entire time. We thought last year with the loss of Bergeron and Krejci that they would go downhill, and they didn't, right?
This is true. Yeah, they still finished over 100 points, and they pushed Florida till the very end. And in fact, Florida took the division by a single point at the end of the season. So 109 points. That's pretty. It's pretty amazing. But I mean, like, you're starting with your goalie, your starting goalie not playing.
Yep.
One of your best players kind of hobbled a little bit. He's in his mid to late 30s. Pasternak, I think, is guaranteed though. Like he's pretty.
I mean, they still have talent. They still have talent on the team. So So it's not like I said. I don't see them dropping. I think the fact that if they may drop a few points, that means Toronto's going to move up a few points too, right? I mean, the Leafs for them, obviously the season, the Leafs could win the division, right? It just depends on how tired Florida is, what those losses, what those impacted losses are. I mean, the Leafs got.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so tell me who you think the top three is going to play out, because those three are the guaranteed playoff teams. So how are you looking for your?
I got Florida, Toronto, and Boston. Those are the three. Those are the top three. And I got Montreal finishing in the rear, like they did last year. They're building through the draft. I mean, Buffalo is. They're not quite ready to challenge, the other teams. So they're building through, and they've we actually are recording this after the season started out, in Europe. So they're not as good as they needed to be, but that's the piece of the puzzle here, right? Dealing with like I think those are the top three teams. They've been the class for the last few years, along with Tampa. I think Tampa drops back a little bit, and those three teams kind of separate themselves a little bit, like they did last year.
Mm-hmm. So, how do you have the rest of the division? The order of the rest of the division.
So I'm going to say Tampa finishes fourth still. Still think they have enough to finish fourth. I got Ottawa fifth, Detroit sixth, Buffalo seventh, and Montreal finishing eighth.
Mm-hmm.
What are your thoughts, man?
Okay.
And like with Montreal, their biggest acquisition is Patrick Laine, and Patrick Laine is he's on his third team. Right, it's a make it or break it time for him now. He can't be effing around. But
yeah,
I just don't think.
Yeah,
he's
out right now. He hurt his knee, so
yeah.
2 to 3 months I think was the prognosis. So best case is like he comes back before Christmas, but you don't even think that that's a possibility. It may be a whole scratch this year.
Yep.
Yeah, they have some young, they're, like you said, they're trying to build through the draft. I think it'll take another year before they make a jump. So I'm with you with Montreal at the bottom. I think Montreal and Buffalo are gonna kind of duke it out for the bottom, and it's unfortunate because for Buffalo, you almost feel bad in a way because it's like a never-ending rebuild, and they did show some flash a couple of years ago, especially when Tage Thompson had a big year, but they just, even with influx of talent and building through the draft, they just couldn't get over that hump. And now it seems like they're kind of snake bitten because there's other teams that are probably made more improvements in recent years. So I don't know where Buffalo goes. Kind of feel bad. I think if I'm not mistaken, they have the longest playoff drought.
And it's going to continue. And it's going to continue, right? Yeah. They're also trying to build through the draft, but it's hard, right? It's hard to build through the draft unless you hit on some late round picks. Late round picks will help you all the time.
And Detroit was knocking on the door of the wild card last year. They, in fact, tied with Washington at 91 points, but Washington ended up getting the tiebreaker. So, if Detroit, if they're on that trajectory around the same, like in that same area, and we expect Ottawa to be improved, just because when you improve your goaltending, you will automatically improve your chances. That was probably one of the biggest trades in the division.
Yep.
To improve their goaltending. Although why they got rid of Jacob Chikrin is a head scratcher because he's a very effective defenseman. They added Mike Adamio from Vegas. David Perron, another veteran, they added some veterans, but I think they'll kind of be, I'm with you, I think they'll kind of be with Detroit in that middle push for a wild card. So the way I got it, actually we're thinking very similar. I think Toronto and Florida battle for first. Maybe Florida give them the edge just because of recent experience and knowing how to do it. Although you might think Florida might, 2 deep runs in the last 2 years, they might take their foot off the gas a bit and in the regular season and turn it on. Kind of like how Tampa Bay did it, right? Like they once Tampa Bay got used to winning, they kind of paced themselves in the regular season, knowing setting themselves up for the long run in the playoffs. So I wouldn't be surprised if Panthers do something similar and that the Leafs take top spot. But I'm still going to call Florida to take the division, Leafs to finish second, Boston to finish third. and Tampa Bay to finish 4th, Ottawa to finish 5th, followed by the Red Wings, the Sabres, and the Canadians. So I think we got the same order.
Yeah, we did. We did. I mean, and I think it's important to note for Toronto, right? That they signed Ekman Larson and Tanev, and Tanev was like critical for Dallas last year in the playoffs. I mean, he played with a broken foot, but he was unreal, like in the first 2 rounds of the playoffs last year. I watched a lot of what Dallas did in the playoffs last year in the first couple rounds, and he was unreal.
Yeah.
And when he went out, when he got hurt, that hurt their team. You could see the impact. So
right, and we should say the coaching change too, and a very different coach from Sheldon Keefe, who departed to New Jersey, in Craig Berube, who's already said, that he's going to try to implement a north-south style of hockey. And the Leafs have been east-west like for the last few years, so it'll be interesting to see how that transition.
I mean, it's clear the Leafs improved their defense. I think obviously their goaltending is going to be still a concern. They got Stolars from Florida, along with Ekman Larson from Florida. Wall's always has an injury concern, and Matt Murray's coming off hip surgery. So, that's going to be their concern goaltending. And then there's, we talk about the Swayman issue in Boston, but the Mitch Marner stuff. I think Mitch can mentally block it out, but if you get off to a slow start, people start hounding him, right? So that's gonna be interesting to watch too.
Yeah, I agree. Like it's all based on the start. If he starts in a slump, then he's gonna be hounded. But not only that, just because it has one of the biggest media markets for hockey, it'll be, everybody else will be asked about it, and that's the distraction, right? The captain's gonna have to speak to it after games. Other players are gonna be asked about it. That's where the distraction comes. This isn't just a distraction on Mitch Marner himself. This is the whole team. When you got 25, 30 reporters, trying to shove a microphone in your face after practice in the morning, then that's a lot of heat, especially if things don't start right. So it's definitely an opportunity for distraction. But I think that, Berube will kind of calm the waters a bit, and they have enough veterans there, especially with the additions that you said, right? Two recent Stanley Cup winners, along with some grizzled veterans. That should kind of steady things. And the Leafs, I think, will be more consistent defensively as a result.
Yeah, they'll be cleaner, right? They've struggled the last few years cleaning up their zone at times. Allowing really good offensive zone chances. I don't think they'll make those kind of mistakes, this year with those two guys.
Right. Okay. Well, that does it for the Atlantic Division. We'll talk to you next time or next episode. Thanks, DDawg.
Thanks.